Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the third edition, the Wednesday edition of The Wrestling Mat. I am Matt Camp. I am your host, usually for an hour, right? That's what we're doing so far. Hey, it could change, but most importantly, what you need to do right now, there it is. Subscribe at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Subscribe on YouTube. You can catch replays of our past shows, our shorts, because we actually update that page. I'll talk about that in a second. And, of course, we have all of our clips of our shows. A lot of people talking about the Otis stuff from yesterday, and I am still seeing conversations being had around wrestling media about what I've talked about with WWE press conferences and what they want and my thoughts on how media members should treat those unless they just want to be part of the show. It's up to you. But that conversation continues. Maybe we'll have more to talk about as it pertains to that following this weekend because we have King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia. Don't know if they're doing a press conference there. And then, of course, AEW Double or Nothing on Sunday night. We'll see if we get a press conference on that. We'll talk more about that. We're going to get into both of those shows a little bit here and there on today's episode. But remember, please subscribe, thewrestlingmatshow.com. We're going to be exclusive on YouTube as of Monday, so make sure you're there so you don't miss a thing. And coming up a little bit later on in the show, going to tell you how you can win a signed Double J, J-E-double-F, J-A, double R-E-double-T, Jeff Jarrett signed Major Bendy. I'll tell you right now, if you send us a picture, screenshot of you subscribed to thewrestlingmatshow.com. That's the YouTube channel. That's where you can go. You can win that signed Jeff Jarrett Major Bendy. Just send that with your social handle. Let us know. Thewrestlingmatshow.com at wrestlingmatshow@gmail.com, Send us proof of that, and you could win that signed Double J Major Bendy. Now, I know we talked a little bit. If you saw our social media, please follow us at WrestlingMat23. Really appreciate that. Get your comments here. I want to take your questions throughout the show. Shout out to Courtney Dro and J Love Sports already in there. What's up? What's up, Real Wrestling Maniac? Throw your questions in as we hit them throughout the show. Love to get your comments. Love to get your questions on all things going on in the world of professional wrestling. As I said, we're going to get into 5 superstars in NXT right now that I believe can translate to the main roster, to Raw and to SmackDown, and 5 superstars / factions who I do not think translate to the main roster. That is coming up in just a little bit. But something I have discussed a lot is AEW's promotion or lack thereof. They go into a big go-home week for Double or Nothing, as Tony Khan has noted on social media, 5-year anniversary. Congrats to them. A very big congrats for AEW heading into now their 6th year. That's fantastic. They are still very much in startup mode. There's been ups, there's been downs. We'll see where the rating comes out after tonight's Dynamite. Very interested to see where that lands in a go-home week. Did they make the bridge from Dynamite last week to Collision and Rampage to Dynamite again this week? We'll see. We'll see if that is the case. But JR was on Busted Open this morning. And JR talked about a few things. And first I want to talk about a question he got from one of my colleagues on Busted Open, Bully Ray. He asked about who could be the head of talent relations in AEW. And I would think this is a question that may come up again tomorrow when Tony Khan has his media call. And to even ask that question was a little baffling to me. And I'm not blaming Bubba or Bully, whatever you want to call him for this. But we're 5 years in. I was under the impression that Christopher Daniels had that role. Now, a couple of years ago, they had this press release, and it was, okay, we have Christopher Daniels in that role, and Pat Buck's involved in that, and Sanjay and QT Marshall left, and then QT Marshall came back. But JR didn't go, well, it's Christopher Daniels, and forget the kayfabe firing last week and all that. He said, well, I think that would be a good role for Bryan Danielson. I don't disagree with that. And I know a lot of has been made of Danielson and the leeway he has, and he's going up against Satnam Singh tonight, which, as Joey Janela said, would be the first match he would have booked if he had the pen, if he had the pencil. I kind of love the idea of that match, but getting back to the conversation at hand. Bryan Danielson as a head of talent relations does make sense to me. It also, plays into that whole thing of he was going to find people for social media, and they had fun with that and whatever. But does that mean they don't really have a head of talent relations right now? Does no one hold that role? I'm kind of legitimately asking. I am baffled if they really don't, because JR went right and gave an answer. He gave a name. Does that mean it's not Christopher Daniels or any of those names I mentioned? I know Tony Schiavone helps out in kind of handling some talent relations stuff. Do they not have a head of talent relations? I don't know if JR was speaking out of turn, if he was wrong, didn't know the titles of everybody. That's a little baffling to me, especially for a company that I think desperately needs leadership like that. And it felt like they were trying to put an infrastructure together. I don't get why that is a open-ended question. If anybody from AEW would like to respond, I'd love to know. What is the hierarchy? What does the front office look like? I know a lot of office people wrestle on the show and appear on the show. Billy Gunn, Sanjay Dutt's a regular. I saw Jimmy Jacobs, who's on the creative team, is wrestling in ROH this week in Satnam Singh. Christopher Daniels wrestled last week. A lot of office in the ring and on television. A lot of office in the ring and on television. Not necessarily a good thing. Let's move on, though, from that. JR also said, as I'm paraphrasing the quotes here from Busted Open, they have to get someone hot. And he puts that on the talent. He did praise Darby Allin, talked about his style, talked about how he's unique. And I throw this question out to all of you. Who's the guy in AEW right now? WWE, you know it's Cody Rhodes. It was Roman Reigns. Cody was right there with him. You have somebody like Bianca Belair. You can go, that's the woman over there. Or the man herself, Becky Lynch. They have those very obvious answers that handle big media, that get to be the stars, that act like stars, that are presented like stars. Who is that? Who's in that group in AEW? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in your comments. Who is the biggest star in AEW? From a perception standpoint, to me, it's Jon Moxley. When he comes out, I pay attention. When he cuts a promo, I pay attention. If he has something to say, he says it in a way that comes across as a big deal. He doesn't go inside baseball. He doesn't go meta. He plays his role very well. He is a very, very good professional wrestler. J Love says Moxley, MJF. I think MJF was in that conversation. Obviously, he's out of the mix now. We don't know when he'll be back. Who are those people? Producer Dom says Ospreay has potential. I agree with that. I have said since Will Ospreay was signed to a full-term deal in AEW that I wasn't sure how he was going to translate. I think his passion is something that AEW, and admittedly so they have done, needs to put front and center. Ospreay made it clear how much he wanted to be in AEW, how much he wanted this opportunity, how much he wanted to push himself. He's done a lot of it so far. We're going to see him against Roderick Strong at Double or Nothing. Admittedly, I think it's taken him down a level because I think he was going like this. You think about the fact that, he's beaten Jericho and he's beaten Takeshita and he beat Bryan Danielson. Now he's wrestling for the third or fourth title in the company. Okay. But I think there's potential there, Will Ospreay. And that is not only in the ring. It's how you are as a character. It's how you cut promos, both on television, on social media, in the media if they actually do promotional stuff. Who do you put in that category? Courtney said Swerve. Not yet. Not yet with Swerve. Swerve wants to be. I'll tell you that. I think he's got the drive to be that. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder and a massive one at that. And that takes you sometimes a long way. I think it's taken him to where he is now. He's not that guy yet. I think at the beginning, Chris Jericho was in that conversation. Now Chris Jericho's a laughingstock. By the way, AEW made sure to promote that Fozzy concert in September. Good thing we got that promotion out there. That was important. Swerve as the undercard of that, by the way, performing as well. That tells me priorities are a lot of whack. By the way, this is day 3 of the Wrestling Mat. I'm going to go over to the AEW YouTube page. And let's see. Has AEW updated their shorts? Nope. As I look, day number 3 now, folks. The top short talks about Samoa Joe and Keith Lee. And matches from months ago. Those are the top shorts on AEW's YouTube page. Months and months and months old. I got told, I know they don't have a big team. I'm not blaming the team necessarily. I'm blaming the fact that that should be a priority and money should be invested accordingly. Maybe we don't worry about that collab post for Fozzy. Well-known AEW superstars, Fozzy. Head of the Wembley show. What the hell? Jesus Christ. Got to get that Fozzy promotion in there. What would we do? How would we draw at Wembley without promoting the Fozzy concert, everybody? Holy shit, are you serious? You got a pay-per-view this weekend. The Fozzy tickets go on sale Friday. Great. Glad we know that. Fantastic. Anyway, once again, though, comes back to who is the biggest star in AEW? Who are the stars that you go, that is what AEW is all about? I put Moxie at the top of that list. I would love Swerve to get there. I honestly think Willow can get there. Mercedes Moné seems like she's in a world of her own. I know that she appears on AEW, but it feels like that's just like her Wednesday job, and she's trying to do other things. I would like to JR's point, you got to get people hot. Who are the 5 people you go, that's the top of AEW? Team AEW is Bryan Danielson and FTR and Darby. I don't think Darby's gimmick is something that's going to be something that they necessarily show off at media upfronts and things like that. And I'm not like that. He's unique. There's something cool to that. I like that. But I'm talking about these are the absolute faces of our company. They're booked consistently. They're booked at the top. They present themselves in a very big way. They're not fighting with idiots on Twitter and acting like idiots themselves. And there are plenty of people in AEW and WWE for that matter. We're going to get into some of those people coming up in a second that do that kind of stuff. Man, you take yourselves down so many levels by doing that. A lot of people should look at what Drew McIntyre is doing right now with the social media and not copy it because you can't be him, but look at how he's handling himself. I've talked to some talent in AEW and WWE. There's one in particular in AEW who I think does a tremendous job with his social media. And I'm not gonna be specific because I don't want to out him on this. But I told him that his socials are like currency. He picks his spots. He doesn't just tweet random shit. He doesn't just post random shit. When he does post, it's funny or it's engaging or it's interesting. And to me, if you get, a rub from that, he posts a picture with you or he posts about you or what, I call that social media currency. Doesn't put a lot of stuff out there, so when he does, it means more. When I see Shane Taylor getting in a fight with Kevin Nash, because Nash gave him some criticism, he's like, why don't you come challenge me at my who cares? Listen to the criticism. If I see Hobbs going back and forth because someone said he sucked, you're just bringing yourself down to that level. You don't always have to read the comments. You don't always have to respond to the comments. A lot of people in a lot of companies do that kind of stuff. Gals boys were doing that the other day. We're going to talk about Gals coming up in a second. Like, what are you doing? You're above that. Don't give them the access. I would like to talk about NXT as a whole. Get your questions in here. Speaking of NXT, Misfits Wrestling Podcast, thoughts on Julia. Julia at the Marigold show. Sorry if I said it wrong. Apparently hurt her wrist. I know NXT wants to have her soon and, be part of Heat Wave. It sounds like she's going up against Roxanne. I've always been a big fan of Julia. I think since, there was that new look of Stardom when they came under Bushi Road and New Japan and all that, she jumped out to me. She's got a cool look. She changes up her look. She jumps off the page. She's a hell of a worker. There's something cool about her. She draws you in. And I think WWE is smart to grab her, assuming that she will be locked in and all that stuff. Sounds like we're on that way. So I hope she's okay. I hope they don't rush anything. But she's somebody that handled properly can be a huge star. Big fan of her. I think what she does makes her, she presents herself very, very well, very big. J Love Sports, could Josh Alexander next year be that star for AEW? I like Josh. I like his style. I like what he does. I think he needs to project a little bit better. I haven't seen a lot of Josh in front of big crowds. I would be interested to see how a 3, 4, 5, 7,000 seat arena reacts to him. How his style translates in a big way. How his promos translate in a big way. He's been through a lot, and he's been in the business for a while. He had done some great stuff with Ethan Page. I'd be interested. I don't know if I see super big star with him, but I give him a shot. Yeah, I see where he's at with his contract and all that. I know TNA kind of rolled that over or whatever they did. Good question. That's fair. Fair question. Let's talk about NXT last night. Let's talk about NXT as a whole. And I'm going to get into what we did promote on the show. 5 NXT stars that I believe can translate to the main roster as they are right now. And 5 stars / groups that I don't think translate. There's some big names on there. I'll get to that coming up. Stay with me on that one. Yeah, throw your thoughts in the comments, what you think. But I need to talk about what I believe is booking malpractice for NXT. And this has happened a few times. NXT is introducing, and a lot of people are happy about this, the NXT, or Women's North American Champion. And that championship, there it is. At Battleground in Las Vegas, coming up in a few weeks, NXT will crown the first ever NXT Women's North American Champion. That's a mouthful. And they're doing so in a ladder match. And the way, this is the most Matt Bloom, Orlando PC shit ever. The way that they are getting to that match is they had a combine. Clearly a worked combine, because I saw some of the names that were towards the bottom of that list, like Ivy Nile. What is this, the CrossFit Games? I get it. You got that board there in the PC and all the records of people lifting weights and stuff, because that's how you cut a promo. That's how you get over. You set all those records. And believe me, there's people on that board that can cut great promos. Montez Ford and Bianca Belair's names are all over that. So they run a combine, because who can work out the best means you should get a chance at the North American Championship. A combine. What? They are so obsessed with that stuff down there and having people lift heavy which turns into an ACL repair factory. And speaking of, there are multiple talents in that ladder match with no ladder match experience who are in the ACL club. Let's talk about who is qualified for the women's North American title ladder match at Battleground. Lash Legend has come a pretty long way, admittedly. I didn't know if she would last. Very rough in the ring, but great look, a lot of charisma, a lot of confidence. I think she's done well. She's in that match. She debuted, believe it or not, all the way back in December of 2021. And during that time, she has had a grand total of 102 matches. That is not a lot of matches per year. Let's put her in a ladder match on the pay-per-view. Sol Ruca, who I'm going to talk about coming up in a little bit, has 53 matches in her career. Shout out to cagematch.net. Something it's useful for is tracking matches, not ratings. 53 matches. She debuted in June of 2022. She missed 10 months with a torn ACL and only came back a couple months ago. And let's put her in a ladder match. Fallon Henley. I'm a big fan of Fallon Henley. Fallon Henley debuted back in June of 2017. I think people saw her as Tessa Price and wrestled in AEW and Dark and Elevation, all that stuff like that. 136 matches. She is the veteran of that match so far. Jada Parker. Once again, someone who I think has projected quite well so far. I think there's something there with her. She debuted in a Battle Royal in June of 2022. She had her first singles match a few months later. She has a grand total of 31 matches to her name. We're going to put her in a ladder match on a premium live event. And there's 2 spots available, one of which should have someone who is an absolute lock for this match. Because if she's not in this match, I'm closing my eyes. Michin, Mia Yim. 600-plus matches. Debuted 15 years ago. 5 ladder matches. She will take on Tatum Paxley next week. 84 matches in her career. Debuted in February 2022. Michin better be in that match because they need her. And then the other qualifier, Kalani Jordan, who I think has lost some of the buzz she had. 58 matches to her name. She debuted in October of 2022. She takes on Ren Sinclair, who had actually a bit of an indie career before WWE, popped up in AEW. 104 matches to her name, debuted in October of 2019. She is also in the ACL club. That is a big concern. I get wanting to make this championship a big deal. I get you want to have Ava, who is in the position she is in, for reasons that seem pretty obvious to me, make a big announcement. And we are throwing a lot of inexperience in a ladder match. This has happened before. Tom, let's get that comment up there. I think Tony D'Angelo doing fine in War Games as his 4th match or whatever has given them way too much confidence in just throwing rookies in cluster gimmick matches. I think it was like his 8th, Tom. But remember in that match, and I am 100% with you, that NXT 2.0, they had like some street fight in there when it was B-Fab and Elektra Lopez, like week 2 of 2.0. They had barely done much in the ring. I know Elektra had because of her indie stuff and all that. But they were throwing people into matches they were not ready for. I will tell you a story about one Tiffany Stratton, who I and many people knew was going to be a star. They had to write Tiffany Stratton off of television a couple of years ago because she was going to have surgery done. So she was in a feud with Wendy Chu. Wendy, Chu, Karen, you, me, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. plenty of experience on the indies. Was doing the, as she's now back doing, her sleep and lazy gimmick. And they had a back and forth, and they had one of those lights out matches, whatever the hell they call them. And I watched rehearsals happening. I was at NXT that week because I was calling Level Up. I used to go down once a month, and I would do Level Up to kind of hone my commentary skills. So I'm watching rehearsal, and I am watching them put this match together. That's fine. Rehearsals, that stuff should happen, especially down in developmental. Let me make that clear. You're still watching developmental on television. They have to learn. I don't blame any of the talent for this. Everything I'm talking about is about the higher-ups, the decision makers who are putting this inexperienced talent in these positions. So they're going to culminate this feud to do a blow-off to get Right Tiffany off television with this lights-out match, and there's gimmicks, and there's a bed, and there's weapons and all that. And I have to watch them teach Tiffany Stratton how to use a chair. She picked it up the wrong way. Not blaming her. Not blaming her at all. But if I was Wendy Chu, I would have been a little nervous watching that all go down. Let's throw somebody who doesn't have a lot of matches under her belt into a gimmick hardcore match. Is it worth it, really? I know they do a ton of practice, and the week of Battleground, they'll have these 6 women in there rehearsing the spots and all, and I get that. I think they got to throw them in the deep end here and there, but you don't throw them in the deep end at this point in a ladder match on pay-per-view. You are asking a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience. And you don't have a lot of ladder match experience in the match. That's why Michin has to be in it, because no one else has been in a ladder match. You need a ring general, and you need people to find ways to enhance those that can't do as much, that need to have their spots or need to get their shine. If I had to guess, Michin's in and Kelani Jordan will be in. Kelani's got the gymnastics background. They can have some fun with the ladders, but how safe is it going to be? I don't think this is the best spot for Lash Legend. Sol Ruka, another one. There will probably be some sort of soul snatcher from the ladder thing. All right. But, man, this feels unnecessarily dangerous and not fair to the talent to throw them in the deep end like this. I think it's asking for a bit of trouble. But this is what they do. This is developmental on television. This is developmental getting premium live events. And I hope everybody comes out of it okay. That's all I'm saying. I hope they are not pushed to do too much. I remember watching Brutus Creed do that Brutus ball. And I don't know what kind of coaching he was getting. I know they wanted that thing to be a big deal. But I tried to nicely tell him, hey, man, you got to save that thing for big stuff. And they've changed it now, and now it's got that doomsday device kind of set up, and it is a safer move, although if you ask Damian Priest, I don't know if he feels the same way. But he was doing that to the outside. It's a cool looking move, but I felt it should have been saved for bigger things. I think they're pushing that car crash mentality a little bit too much down at the Performance Center. I think that's going to get people hurt. It has gotten people hurt. I wish some of those talents were taken care of better. I wish they were getting some better guidance. Leave it there. Speaking of NXT, I know the draft just happened. And I know we're a couple weeks away from Battleground, moving to Heat Wave and all that stuff. But I like to watch that show with the thought of, okay, this is what NXT is. It's WWE developmental. How are these gimmicks, how are these talents going to make the jump? What translates? Because it felt like NXT had this weird disconnect with the main roster. I put that on a lack of communication and almost some pettiness between like Vince and KD and Triple H. when it was NXT Black and Gold, wrestling. Oh, it was WWE's, answer to the indies. They were the cool brand, and Triple H was getting love after, being hated by the internet for so many years. Now you're getting fruit baskets sent, and we're talking takeovers, unbelievable. And then a lot of those talents would come up, and they'd go, didn't work. It's not what they wanted on the main roster, so people were failing. Or there wasn't a plan for them. And then 2.0 happened, and that was a mix of what the hell's going on. All right, Hunter's out of power, and Sean's in power. And then Sean's kind of just going, I'll do what I'm supposed to do, and I get it. He had a nice role. He still has a nice role, nice cushy job, running the show. Didn't want to ruffle feathers. He was listening. This is what you want. And we were getting weird gimmicks and Duke Hudson playing poker. And we're getting, and I'll get into Tony D'Angelo in a second, the Mafia gimmick. And, a lot of weird stuff. Tiffany Stratton was a daddy's girl, and they got her out of that. And, now she was just a buff Barbie, and she was better than her. That was fine. I get that. But there seemed to be a little bit of lost in translation. To Courtney's point, Ilya Dragunov has transitioned well. There's no goofy gimmicks with Ilya Dragunov. He's a very intense guy. I like his facials in the ring. I think he projects bigger than he is, which is so important for somebody his size. I believe what he's doing, and I want to give him a lot of credit because I met him at Royal Rumble 2020 in Houston. I was doing a watch-along. It was the night Edge came back. NXT had done Worlds Collide the night before. He had wrestled Finn. A lot of people didn't know who he was because it was NXT UK. But they all went to the show. They were taking it in, as they should. And I talked to him in the elevator, and he didn't have a lot to say. He wasn't super fluent in English at the time, and that's okay. But, man, think of how far he has come. Not only for how he speaks, his promos are strong. I don't think he wastes any words. I don't think there's an ounce of funny in him. I don't think he tries to be cute. I think he is dialed in on what he's supposed to be. And to Courtney's point, I think, and a lot of people are seeing it, why he has transitioned so well. He makes you believe. He looks like he's going out there to have the fight of his life. He doesn't take anything for granted. Now, that intensity, I don't think can always be on 10. But he's new to Raw, so you got to get that over. You got to present yourself well. I think they have positioned him well. I think that the tease and the reaction the tease of him and Gunther got is a great sign. And I think this current regime of WWE will be able to tap into what Ilya is and that past feud with Gunther. You can tell that story. Vince didn't they're not going to remember. Cool, you have a whole library you sell of old stuff. You can educate the fan base all the time. They really picked and choose when they did that stuff. I know I'm sidetracking here, but I think you guys like some of these inside stories. You remember when Cena wrestled Roman at SummerSlam a couple years ago? And Cena had come back at Money in the Bank, and they set the match up. So it was a big deal, right? Cena's back, Roman's in his run. Oh, my goodness. Now, as we all know, they had a match at No Mercy a few years prior, and Cena crushed Roman. Crushed him in a promo. Basically called him out for not being a top guy with his promo. And I remembered that. And I always liked, unless I got direction, which I didn't always get direction, I like to fill in the gaps of history. I am going to go on Raw Talk or SmackDown Lowdown or The Bump or whatever, and I got to go tell this story. I got to go get this over. I got to be an analyst as part of the show. All right, what do we have with Roman and John Cena? Well, we have a guy who was the top of the company, the guy for many years, has gone on to other things, but he could still pop back in. And we have Roman Reigns, who is the guy right now, who was absolutely coming into his own, was clearly the guy. But I wanted to bring up that No Mercy match. And the fact that back then, as much as the company wanted Roman to be the guy, He wasn't there. He wasn't being presented well. They were pushing him down our throats, and Cena called him on it. But I got a note, and it wasn't to me. It was to, the announce team. I forget who sent it out, probably Cole. Don't bring that up. Ignore that match happened. What? Ignore it happened. What? It's on the network. I can go watch it on Peacock right now. We ignore it. It happened? You can tell that story. I don't know if Roman was ready back then. And John sunned him. Seems like Roman's ready now. He wants to put that loss behind him and send John away again. Guess what? He did. Didn't want us to tell that story. The current and wrestling biggest fan, I agree. It is crazy. It was an easy thing. It wouldn't have made Roman look weak at all. But they didn't want us to bring that up. There was a time when I wasn't supposed to bring up any numbers as it related to championship reigns because Roman had the number. Roman's reign mattered the most. There was some long reigns going on at that time. Gunther's reign, Bianca's reign. We can only talk about the number of days for Roman Reigns. And based on that, you could talk, but why not tell the full story? Corey, to your point, back to the Roman and Cena thing, it does show how much Roman had developed. Let him address that. Hey, it's not the same guy you spoke to on that ring on Raw. By the way, Roman won that match at No Mercy, on top of everything else. But you could have played into that. The old regime would ignore that. I credit the new regime for not ignoring history. And I'm not saying they have to acknowledge every little thing. Someone brought up, I would not be afraid to bring up Stardom or indie stuff. And I picked my spots with that Misfit Wrestling podcast. I knew that show on YouTube, not promoted, still not promoted, I could get away with stuff a little bit. And I had, that regime, there was times when that show first started where we leaned into stuff heavy. We had Aleister Black on, and we're talking Tommy End, and we're talking runs before he got to WWE. When John Morrison re-signed with the company, we talked about Lucha Underground and wrestling overseas. Yeah, it's not like when Sting showed up, and where did he go for 12 years after WCW? I don't know. TNA. Oh, what? No, he just hung out for 12 years. Like, that stuff is stupid. And I'm not saying put every company over, but tell the story. And by the way, you can tell the story however you want to. You can tell the story of they needed to do all that to get to the big leagues. They had to go somewhere else. The Cody thing, right? You say he left, started up something, and he came back to the biggest place in the world. Because he did. You could still position it however you want, but why not tell that? The Drew story. Drew McIntyre, he left. He had to go find himself. What did he go do? He wrestled here and here and here, and he went to Evolve, and he went to a lot of that was he went into the indie circuit. Okay. No, he went and got better, and he traveled the world, and he got back to the biggest company in the world. He didn't leave to go somewhere greater. He left to go find his way, to figure out his way, so he could be at his best to get re-signed and brought back in to the biggest company in the world. That, indeed, seems to be happening more under this regime. Misfit Wrestling Podcast noting, Michael Cole brought up Shane and Io World of Stardom title match on Raw last week. I was not expecting that. I love when Cole brings up triple tails. I know Cole does his research and always has, but I always love to picture, Cole like just typing in his Stardom password. Honey, what's the Stardom password? Oh, okay. Rossi's calendar. Got it. Okay. Let's type that in. Michael Cole logging in. Ooh. Triple Tails is on tonight. Michael Cole's got cage match. Rating Stardom matches. 8.6. But he does do that. I like that. I would always reference anybody from Lucha Underground. I go, oh, in Boyle Heights. He wrestled in Boyle Heights, California. That was fun stuff to do. Yes, Ian, E-fetting Michael Cole. Michael Cole. Michael Cole logging into IWTV. You guys watched Beyond last night? Oh, man. My favorite Cole, Joshi calls him yelling, "It's Mako time," with all the joy of the girls who shriek at Joshi. Thank you. All right. I enjoyed that. Did you ever get in trouble for something you said on the bump? Oh, did I? That's a good question. I know I got to get into the NXT stuff, but I've gone off on a whole tangent I'm having fun with, so we're going to do that. Did I ever get in trouble for something I said on the bump? I don't think I did. We would get, if you remember, there was that pay-per-view, it was like a TLC, I think, and Charlotte came back and tagged with Asuka, and I was told, like, speculate on everything, but don't say Charlotte. Like, that stuff would annoy me, because it made me and everybody else look dumb. I don't think I crossed any boundaries. I'll tell you a story. God, this shows you, and this shows you where that relationship went. When they did the draft in 2019, and they had just started the Fox deal, I think this was 2019. And they did the Fox deal. And so it's new. And 2019 or 2020, I think it was 2019. So on the show, on the bump, we did a graphic of the biggest names that had changed brands. That's all it was. Not the full draft. And in that year, for whatever reason, like the SmackDown side, it got like 4 new people. I think they got like Roman and Charlotte, and that was a big deal. But they didn't get much. So we showed 4 names, and Raw had like 8. And I know the show got in trouble because Fox was pissed because of how they were perceived, that they only got 4. And some of those Fox people knew wrestling, and some of those Fox people didn't know wrestling. But, like, that went, like, the Fox people complained to Bruce, who then, like, said something to somebody on our show, and then it went to KD, and then it went to the producer of the bump. And I think, admittedly, like, KD was okay with it. Like, he understood, but it's like, watch how we present. And Fox got pissed about that. The Fox-WWE relationship, like, clock's ticking, dude. They're going to... That is long done. We used to have battles with WWE Backstage because they came on and we came on. WWE's the bump. And there was, like, this silent rivalry. And, like, they definitely watched our show and copied stuff. Like, the walk-in Kayla would do. All of a sudden, Renee was doing it. Like, 2 weeks later, it was the same thing. And we would battle over news because they would hand Satin stuff, even though he pretended like he broke the news himself. No, he got handed stuff because he was working on the show. And he would get handed, I remember, like, it was a battle of who was going to break the news about John Morrison and Cross getting signed. And they got to break the news about Morrison, but we got to have him on the bump. And, like, that went back and forth. That was like a weird feud, except they were on a terrible time slot. It didn't follow SmackDown. It never made sense. They struggled in the pandemic and did the home shows, and it just didn't work. I mean, they got Punk, and it didn't work. Think about that. But we had battles. There was a whiteboard from a former WWE executive that had, like, who was coming on their show, who was coming on our show, and it was like an internal battle. And I will tell you that until the last day I worked on the bump, we would have jokes where we would go, we're at 280, they finished at 39. 280 to 39, have a great show, everybody, because they did 39 episodes. That weird stuff existed. That stuff doesn't exist anymore. The Fox deal will be done soon. I'm sure Netflix will be happy to be on board with everything, and obviously the USA, NBC, Universal, relationship is great. Okay, SmackDown's going to USA. It's on Peacock still, all that stuff. That's great. They get it. That Fox Twitter account, holy shit, did that cause some problems. Holy shit, did they say too much stuff. A variety of people. They didn't like to follow the rules, and it got them in trouble. And people thought that, WWE social media was running that account. They were not. They had to clean up those messes far too often. But I think, now things are more in line. I think that's because from the top down, there's more synergy in WWE. And because of that, there's not changing of plans. And everybody understands where things are going. There was always this worry about, well, if we tell somebody too much stuff, then they're going to spoil it. Sure, that still happens, though. It happens no matter what. That stuff gets out. To what level it gets out is a different story. But that stuff gets out. So, we would be kept in the dark from a digital side, and then we'd have to, go, oh, we have to adjust on the fly. This changed. We weren't ready for that. That was annoying. We're all on the same page. We're all on the same team. I'll tell more of those stories as I think of them. If you have questions, hit me up. All right, let's talk about what we said we were going to get into. I want to talk about 5 NXT talent/groups that aren't ready to move to the main roster or won't translate to the main roster. And 5 that are, I think, could do it. Let's do it the 5 that aren't. I don't think people are going to like this when I say it. I don't think the D'Angelo family translates to Raw or SmackDown. I like all 4 of those people a lot. Tony D'Angelo has come a very long way from being an NXT 2.0 guy, as Tom mentioned earlier, being in that War Games match. Stacks works his ass off. I think, they had that dude who got busted for steroids or whatever the hell he did, and he popped up in AEW. They moved on from that. They eliminated him. Rizzo has figured, she was one of those athletes in one of those performances. She was in one of those tryouts that they did at the big shows. Luca, I like a lot. I actually had some ideas for Luca Crisafino to do some stuff on the bump. And I thought the gimmick was fun. However, are you going to tell me that Cody Rhodes is going to sell for the family verbally? You're going to tell me that Drew McIntyre is going to get worried about getting a hit put on him by the family? I love them on NXT. NXT seems to be this bubble of its own. I think Tony will be fine when he figures out something. Think about what Raw and SmackDown look like right now. Think about what you have to suspend in terms of your disbelief. There's not a lot of that going on, right? You got cross-cutting and spooky promos, but there's no, they got rid of the hourglass and the, appearing in play. Bray Wyatt and what I think they're doing right now, that is a one-off thing, and that can be tough to book. Look at the Bray Wyatt run with The Fiend. It's tough to book. It's tough to take everybody out of reality. This is a sports-based show now. Sure, Tony should be able to threaten everyone's life if they rode off Pretty Deadly, right? And then those guys did a great job kind of going like, oh, we got out of the water, we're okay. It's a hard thing to sell on Raw and SmackDown. Dro, I'm with you. Do they deserve to stay in NXT? Yeah, but they want to go make money. They want to go make some big money and get on Raw and SmackDown. So you got to translate. How does this work? I think all 4 of these as individuals are really good. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think Tony's an underrated wrestler. I think Stacks bumps his ass off and does a good job. NXT, let's get Tom's quote up there. NXT is like Saved by the Bell wrestling. You can't slot Screech right into Friends. Not that Tony D is Screech. He's not. No. I don't. What are we getting them ready for? You're calling up the D'Angelo family to be a mob family on a show that doesn't have those gimmicks around. It's not about how good they are. It's about how it works within all the other things that are going on your programs. That's a tough sell. I'm going to put Roxanne Perez on this list. Roxanne Perez came up with a lot of juice, she's the prodigy. And she was, I love wrestling, and I grew up watching wrestling. And I've heard that story a lot of times before. Now she's mean. You people did this, and she's the champ. Okay. Not a great promo. Not that big. A good worker, not great. I think there's a lot of work that she felt like she was anointed, and I don't think she has progressed enough. It feels like it happens too often in NXT. You get that fan favorite that loves wrestling, and the automatic move is, I hate you people. Why did I wrestle? Because I loved wrestling. Or why did I wrestle? It's very formulaic. It happens a lot. I think it's happening with her right now. I need to see more layers from her. I need to believe her as a promo more. Another group, I just think I've seen enough. Gallus, they closed the show with them last week. I'm sorry. I've seen this before. Captain Wiener, big fish, small pond type shit. Yeah, I think Gallus is like, we can run this show. And they don't do anything for me. They don't project. A couple of guys that want to fight. Okay. They could be on top of NXT UK. You can say that they run stuff in NXT. Maybe they work as more of a fodder in a group, but not leading the way. I think that you run into circles with that. Put Lexus King up here. Let's look at this one. Nope. I don't know what that. This is. I don't know. I don't know what the hell he's supposed to be. I didn't get Pillman in AEW. I don't get him now. I think the look is ridiculous. I think that look gets picked apart in a promo by a big name on Raw or SmackDown. How could you not? How could you not? I don't know why he got the push he got. I don't know what they thought they saw in him. And they had him get beat by Dante. Shout out to Dante Chen, by the way. That dude's worked his butt off and has worked hard. And I know that doesn't always mean you do well, but I was happy to see him get that spotlight. However, speaking of him, put Mr. Stone up there, please. How many chances do you get, dude? A manager to me who makes it more about himself than anything else. How many chances do you get? At what point do we go, you know what? We tried this, we tried that. He was a babyface manager for Von Wagner. I know a lot of people like him there. But at what point do we go, hey, it just hasn't worked? I didn't mind fist pumping Robbie in TNA. But yeah, what has worked with him? At what point do we go, all right, that's enough? So let's go positive here. 5 that I do believe absolutely translate. Some of these will be obvious. Let's start with the NXT champion. Trick Williams has been money almost from the jump. And I say that as not someone who was ready from the jump, but as someone who had the potential. Bang, he could talk. He carried Carmelo through the majority of promos. He surpassed Carmelo a long time ago in that act. They did a nice job dragging that out, taking their time with it. It wasn't an obvious breakup. Hey, we got to go our separate ways. We want to do great things. Okay, cool. And they kept them somewhat connected, because you can break up a tag team and it doesn't mean they can't still be friends. Trick has it right here. Trick, I like Trick because I like that Trick put in extra effort. Trick made a sitcom on social media. Trick made music videos. Trick knew that this is where the money is at. He's also a big dude in great shape, and the ring stuff is the last thing that he needs. And he's on his way there. And they've put him in there with good people who are more experienced than him and better than him. And I will say it again and again and again. That is the money. He has been the money in NXT. He has been a real potential main eventer that you invest in for quite some time. So now he's NXT champion. You get him out there cutting promos. He should be working as much as possible. How did Dom get better? He worked more matches than anybody in the company over a year plus. That's what Trick's got to do. Not just the coconut loops in Florida. He's got to be on live events. He's got to be working with the Raw and SmackDown talent that are more experienced than him, that he gets better. Being in there with Ilya was good for him. Being in there with Corbin was good for him. More of that. But he has it. And they know that, which is good. I know Trick can be a main eventer. And not everybody on this list is going to be a main eventer. Let's go to the next name. Fallon Henley has experience. She has been able to do, the cowboy, cowgirl thing with who she was with Briggs and Brooks. She made that work. She leaned into it. And I actually thought that when we saw her do the stuff with Tiffany, even though Fallon was the baby face, the way she treated her, I went, ooh, there's a heel in there. And what do we get now? We get Fallon tired of being a sidekick. I know I'm good. I'm going to show you I'm good. I would have her win that match, by the way. I would have her win that ladder match. But Fallon has gotten better. Fallon takes whatever they throw at her and makes it the best she absolutely can. She can work. I think there is something to her, maybe not super duper star right away, but I think she does everything you ask of her. I think you could put her in a tag team. You could put her in a faction. I think as she, gets more comfortable, there's more there to Fallon, but she's a reliable talent, and I think that goes a long way. Captain Wiener, heel Fallon, best Fallon, certainly the most charismatic, most character-driven Fallon. I like that. It seems like you guys like that a lot. Courtney saying, I love heel Fallon Henley. Ace saying the same thing. Dro, Fallon as a heel was the right booking for the business. I agree completely. Let's get a couple more of these. Ariana Grace might be my favorite person in NXT. See what she's doing right there? She figured it out. She's gotten better in the ring. Another person who dealt with a major injury, was off the TV for some times. But Ariana Grace gets it. Her social media is great. She's very much like Chelsea Green. They're too similar to put them together, but I'm glad they interacted on NXT a couple weeks ago. She's funny. Her facial expressions are good. She knows how to get the most out of even a little time. Her in the Battle Royal was great. That post of when she was trying to, why does everybody have to She's very funny. I know a lot of that is in her genes because of her dad. But that is someone you can put on TV. There's a lot of the iconics. There's a lot of Billie Kay in her, and I mean that in the highest compliment possible. Big fan. Ian saying, works to the back of her house with expressions. She gets it. More people should take after her in terms of being able to get over on the microphone. Her matches don't mean a damn thing. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that as I watch her because she makes me laugh, because she plays the chicken shit, because she'll put egg on her face. Chelsea Green has no problem getting egg on her face. This guy right here was the king of that. This is Bobby Heenan for you youngsters out there. Here is his weasel suit. He lost a match. He had to wear the weasel suit. Egg on your face is a good thing. Miz was always willing and is still willing to get egg on his face. That goes a long way. Captain Wiener, facial expressions are very good. She's super gifable. Yes. And she knows that. And she plays to the camera. And to NXT's credit, they picked that up. That goes a long way. Two more names. I know we're running along, and I don't care because I can. I like Thea Hale a lot. I think there is a underdog, babyface, plucky, firecracker element to her that she showed before Chase U. By the way, one of the best things NXT ever did, one of the best things, was having Thea Hale do the what college I'm going to thing. Much like high school players get in their gym and they got the hats of the different, and she had the Chase. I love that so much. I love Chase U so much. Another one I think that is probably NXT only, but they make the best of it. I've loved all the Chase U stuff. I love Andre Chase. Duke Hudson is probably somebody I would throw in the mix of I would like to see them on Raw or SmackDown because he's very funny. He's subtly funny. He gets it. His old YouTube shows were funny as hell. I think he got in trouble for some of them. I don't care because they tried to keep him under their thumb. His creativity is excellent. But back to Thea Hale. There's an underdog quality to her. I think you could easily have plugged Thea Hale into what Lyra Valkyria is doing in the Queen of the Ring tournament. The underdog, the Cinderella story. By the way, shout out to EO and Lyra for having the highest rated segment on Monday Night Raw this week. Very interesting. It's almost like you can put anybody in prominent roles if they're good and they'll draw. Doesn't have to be a men versus women thing. It's working. But I think Thea Hale could have fit that. Maybe there is that Cinderella story to her. I think her facials are great. She's, there's going to be a point where she got to calm down. I like that she was kind of mean for a bit and then got back to her roots. That's someone else who has been given some weird stuff, some funny stuff, some tough, and she's made it work. She can work. She's quick. She's fun. She checks a lot of boxes. I think she could be a super fan favorite if given the opportunity. And I think she's gotten over in a very big way. And I don't like to overrate how people get over in NXT because I think it's often the same 300 or 400 people and they get their favorites. But I like what Thea Hale has done. One more, and I still think she needs work, but I like Sol Ruca. I like Sol Ruca from the jump. I was lucky enough to be on the call for the first Soul Snatcher. And I had heard about it. I had heard about the Soul Snatcher. And I had heard a story because they used to do these things called PC Lives. People may have heard of this. They would do these things called PC Lives. They weren't house shows. They weren't live events. But it was those type of matches, and they would have them in the PC. And we'd get people reps and all that, good way to get reps, a step up of, PC training, but a step below house shows and live events. And I had heard a story that the first time Soul hit the Soul Snatcher in front of what the crowd was just the other people who worked at NXT, the people we haven't seen, all the up-and-coming talent, all the people they signed, and Montez Ford was there. And I think there's, it's internal clip, but I think I saw it. When Soul hits the Soul Snatcher, they're actually shooting the show like they do NXT. So Montez is in the crowd up in the corner. And when she hits that, he gets up and, you can see him losing his mind. He is he turned into a fan right there. And I saw it after the fact. And I was, I heard, hey, she's going to hit it tonight. And it was on Level Up. And I went, all I was told was, it looks awesome. It's a big deal if she nails it. So I was on the call with Sudu, no longer with the company, and Byron Saxton. And we didn't tell Byron. I knew it was coming. I hadn't seen it. And she hits it for the first time, and she hits it clean. And I come out of I put it in my broadcasting reel just because of how natural my reaction was to that. And Byron's. And it was unbelievable. I think it's contrived at times. I think they got to do it better ways to get in and out of it. That's okay. But I saw it and I went, they have something there. That's it. And that show was taped on Tuesday before NXT. So what I would do on those days, if I was going down, I would go down once a month to Orlando. I would fly down to Orlando after Raw Talk on Monday night. I get the first flight out. I would fly into Orlando. I would go to the Performance Center, go through the day of, getting ready for the show and all that stuff. I would call Level Up. But because I had to be on the bump the next morning in Stamford, literally as the last match was about to go into the ring for Level Up, I would call an Uber to take me to the airport. This is real. And I would catch a flight from Orlando back to usually LaGuardia. It was the last flight back that night, 8:30, whatever flight. So I would leave before NXT even started. As soon as that Level Up finished taping, Uber, airport, back to New York. And go do the bump the next morning. And I went in the next morning and I talked to the head of digital and I talked to one of the great people who does the TikToks and stuff there. And I said, listen, you got to go look up this footage. Because they had it. It was a tape show. I said, this move is going to go viral if promoted correctly. And I gave them the head. I said, and everybody went, holy shit. And I said, exactly. Make sure. And and they said, okay, we'll take a look. And they did. And they were ready for it. They were ready to promote it correctly. Because, remember, Level Up's the last show of the week. I mean, now we have Collision and all that. I get it. But, like, it was on after SmackDown, and you had Rampage on. You know, not a lot of people were watching that show, and that's why they did, you know, developmental stuff. I get that. But that – yes, I did have a lot of Hyatt points, Lauren. I don't have to get those anymore, thank goodness. But I knew that move was a big deal. And it became a big deal, and I went, there is something in her. She has a cool look, the surfer thing. She hasn't cut a lot of promos. I think she'll get there. But there's a super baby face in there, and sometimes a move is enough. It's enough to get people to watch. To the point of, you know, a lot of people have mentioned, I've said this, very gifable. Very jumping off the page. Something you could put on TikTok. And then when they did it, they showed it from like 4 different angles, and they played our commentary over it. And they got the most out of it. It's something I talk about with AEW. Connected. Kevin Nash talked about it on his podcast this week. WWE has a lot of tentacles. Meaning, it's not just Raw and SmackDown and NXT. It's, well, after Raw, you can take stuff to social and make it live that way. And take it to TikTok. And take it to Twitter. And take it to Instagram. And get more out of an 8-minute match than just an 8-minute match. That's exactly what they did with the Soul Snatcher. And it's a cool move. And it'll be a cool move when she hits it on Raw or SmackDown. She's still got a ways to go. I think certainly she could be in the conversation to win that Women's North American Championship. But a cool move and a cool look goes a long way. She is in no rush and should be in no rush to get brought up. But there's a lot of potential in Sol Ruca. So there you go. 5 that I don't think will translate because they need some changes or they just don't have it. And 5 I think that are absolutely ready to go. We, once again, want you to subscribe at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. I know I went long today. I could do that. It's YouTube. It's X. Thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Make sure you subscribe with the social handle and send a screenshot of that to thewrestlingmatchshow@gmail.com, and you can win a signed Double J, Jeff Jarrett, Major Bendy. Shout out to the GCW Commissioner, Matt Cardona. Love to have him on the show soon. But you can do that. So subscribe right now. Send a screenshot so we can see it with your social handle. And email us so you can win that Jeff Jarrett Major Bendy. Now, we're not done. Oh, thank you. Tom said, TNT gave me an overrun. And you know what? I didn't announce it ahead of time. I didn't know we were going to go this long. Just like AEW shouldn't announce that they're necessarily going long because you don't know how long the match will be. Ace said, predictions for Double or Nothing. Ace, I'm going to watch Dynamite tonight. Pretty interesting card. Good go-home stuff. A lot of stuff that's not in question. I don't love that. I don't like the majority of a card announced to not have the match results in question. I don't like when it's super obvious when you know the majority of the winners of matches when they're announced. That takes away some of the fun for me. I get it. You want to heat some people up heading into, Takesh and Matt Sydal. We know where that's going. The only one that's really in question to me is Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay against Roddy and Trent. That can go either way. But, Malachi ain't losing to Kyle O'Reilly tonight. This happened on Collision. Too much of that. We're going to see that, Is Hook really not going to win that three-way to get a shot at Jericho? Is he going to screw him over so we get Shibata and Jericho? Maybe. Brian Keith sure as shit ain't winning that match. You got to be careful. You can't do too much of that. I know I've said it, and I'll say it again. I'm okay with squash matches. I think when done correctly, they're good. I can't wait to see how Bryan Danielson wrestles Saddam Singh tonight. That's going to be funny as hell. Those matches are good. Lauren says, Stokely for champion. I mean, listen, he's the champion of everybody's hearts. Also, I do want to give a shout out to AEW because I have said I've ripped things at times I haven't been fair. I want to go find this. They just put it up. I meant to make a point of referencing it, but they posted something on their social today, which I think is pretty cool, and they've done this and they get credit, and I don't think they do this for the same reasons WWE does in terms of, that old Stephanie McMahon retweet, philanthropy is the best marketing. Let me find it here. Sorry, guys. They posted something. Maybe it's on their story. I got to find it now. But they're having Stokely and... Oh, here it is. I got it. So they're doing, with Black Sports Biz, they're doing Wrestling Adversity presented by AEW. We'll bring Stokely, Athena, Queen, Aminata, Willow back to Black Sports Biz page for the third year. During the panel, 4 professional wrestlers... Stoke. Yes. We'll take you on the respective journeys to stardom and discuss the challenges they navigated. I think it's pretty cool that they're doing that. I think it's pretty cool to see those 4 people on the stage. And I know Stokely's done some of that before. And, Willow's been out in public a little bit more in terms of, out in front for AEW. And she's a great ambassador for the company. Not everybody gets to do that, but I think it's cool that they are doing that. So I want to give them a lot of credit for doing that, and I'm happy to see those 4 get that kind of spotlight and represent AEW in that way because they represent in a big way, and their representation goes a long way. So that's very cool to see. What do we have coming up tomorrow? We will be talking about AEW Dynamite. I think we'll have the rating by the time we get on the air, maybe during the air. Will they come up from that 672 from last week? You would hope so. I'm rooting for them to do so. There was some media this week. We talked about JR earlier being on Busted Open. I know the Bucks did an interview, about where they're at, somewhat in kayfabe, which is fine. I'm okay with that. Let's see what else they do this week leading into Double or Nothing. Being in Las Vegas. Big show for them. Moving their other shows around because they have to. Rampage is starting earlier. Collision's got to go on Friday. I get that. But they got a big shot on Sunday. And they're promoting it as a triple main event. Willow and Mercedes, Swerve and Christian, and the Anarchy in the Arena. Team AEW against the Elite. It's a solid card. Let's see how much more they can sell it tonight on Dynamite. We'll be talking all about that tomorrow. Please leave your questions about that. As you're watching the show tonight, make sure you tweet us at WrestlingMatt23. Send us your comments on Instagram, WrestlingMatt23. You can always tweet me at the Matt Camp. I'll be on there talking about it. But I like to save my comments. I don't like to post a lot during the shows because I like to talk about it with you guys here on the shows now that I have this platform to do so. So get your comments, get your thoughts in about that. We'll be breaking down all things Dynamite, looking into Double or Nothing. And Friday, double preview for you guys. We will preview, of course, SmackDown will be in Saudi. We got Bayley and Chelsea Green on that show. We have the women's and men's SmackDown finals to see who gets into King and Queen of the Ring, Randy and Tama Tonga, and Bianca and Nia. And we'll be doing a full preview, of course, of Double or Nothing and King and Queen of the Ring. That is all coming your way on Friday. Tomorrow, Dynamite review. I'll get one more question here. Ace, does Mercedes Willow main event on Sunday? I don't think it does, but I would be happy if it did. But do you want your show closing with maybe a turn angle with Chris and Stokely on Willow, which is possible with Mercedes standing tall? Do you want the Elite standing tall because I think it's a lock they're going to win? Or do you want to present your world champion in another title defense? His first pay-per-view title defense, right? Yeah, it is. It's his first pay-per-view title defense. Shouldn't that main event the show? Tony's promising an interesting show. I mean, he promoted it a little differently with his words. So he's got something up his sleeve, which is good, but he's got to deliver. If he's going to talk that way, he's talking about the show being special and, 5th anniversary of Double or Nothing, as H just mentioned. There is There is something there, but he's got to deliver. What does that mean? Is MJF coming back? I'm just throwing that out there. No inside info. Ace mentioning, do we see the Motor City Machine Guns debut? Somebody else come back. Where the hell is Britt Baker, by the way? Is she hurt? Not a lot of talk on that. Wonder why. But we'll get into Dynamite tomorrow. Make sure, like we said, one more time, let's plug that, thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Send us a screenshot with your social media handle, subscribe to it, and send it to the Wrestling Match Show at gmail.com, and you can win a signed Double J, Jeff Jarrett, the Hall of Famer, a Major Bendy. Signed Major Bendy from my friend, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. So that'll be it for today. We went long. Thank you for being with me. The numbers looking pretty good. Keep checking out our YouTube page for our shorts, for our clips from the show. I did a bunch of those like YouTube algorithm things, and yes, I'm leaning totally into that. So you get to see different looks at my face. But yes, you can indeed subscribe at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. I will be back with you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks to Dom and Derek, everybody on our crew here at the Wrestling Mat. And we'll be back tomorrow. Shout out to Tim Naki, where we'll be talking about wrestling even more. See you tomorrow, everybody.